Son, you keep dancing with the devil, one day he's gonna follow you home. Sinners was written and directed by Ryan Coogler, who directed Black Panther, and stars Michael B. Jordan as twin brothers. Perhaps they should have billed him as Michael 2B Jordan. Huh? 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 Well, to be or not to be, that is the question. But they are named Elijah and Who Wants to Walk with Elias? Yes, I had to pop the wrestling fans watching this and mind numbly confused all the non-wrestling fans that happen to be watching this as well. They are also named Smoke and Stack. Aha! I do indeed see what you did there, Mr. Coogler. And basically the spoiler-free premise of this, and I'm not even going to mention stuff in the trailer, twin brothers, they spent some time in Chicago and earned some money and came back to their old stomping grounds of Clarksdale, Mississippi. In October of 1932, they got friends, acquaintances, and various people together to have a big old party with music. But let's just say this is going to end up being no ordinary party, and it's going to be memorable, but for all the wrong reasons. If you somehow have managed to avoid the trailers for this movie, credit to you, because I have been seeing the trailer for this all the way back at least in October, if not late September. They hyped the living fuck out of this goddamn thing. I was seeing trailers like mad. At least 80% of the movies I watch, especially horror movies, I was seeing a trailer for this. And I'm like, okay, Michael B. Jordan. And then you have Haley Steinfeld, who is very, very gifted and very, very beautiful. I've seen her in a few things, and seeing her in this, I absolutely fucking get it. You also have Delroy Lindo. You have Omar Miller. You have Jamie Lawson. You have Wumi Mosaku, who plays a character named Annie, and she actually has a terrific performance in this. You have Jack O'Connell. You have Lee Jun Lee. And you do also have Miles Caton as a character, Samuel, that is integral to the story. And I just want to say right now that this movie is absolutely fucking incredible and terrific. And from every angle, I loved it. I absolutely fucking loved it. Before I dive into more of the minutia of this film, this is something you need to fucking experience in theaters. This is exactly why I love horror movies. I fucking loved this. Every aspect of it. The soundtrack is absolutely just something that will bleed into you and will get into the very pit of your soul. The cinematography is fucking incredible. The story they lay out. The way they shoot various things that happen later on. I'm trying to really be as spoiler-free as possible. And really, even though Michael B. Jordan is probably the most, like, big-name actor, no offense to Delroy Lindo, but Michael B. Jordan's, like, you know, the fresh, you know, prospect and everything, and really, really gifted, and Haley has her own fan base. Miles is the standout here as Samuel. And I'm just going to say the singing, if it was by him, incredible. Whoever did the singing, absolutely fucking incredible. It's had a $90 million budget, and was proof that Coogler wasn't just a one-trick pony as far as the Black Panther stuff. This world felt alive, real. It was dripping with atmosphere. It was dripping with style. It was incredible to watch. I love how everything flowed. It earned its scares. It earned its goddamn, you know, crazy bits of like just insanity later on. It felt familiar yet fresh. I love this. You need to see this. You absolutely need to see Sinners as soon as fucking possible. Now, for those that have seen the trailer, and that's where I'm going to do this, for those that have seen the trailer, yes, it's a vampire movie, but it's a different type of vampire movie. If you saw John Carpenter's Vampires, that's probably what this is closest to in comparison to. I want to once again praise Miles as Samuel. I mean, there's like an opening scene that ties back later into it and tells his story, and I absolutely just fucking love how Miles acted in this. Get this man in more stuff. I believe I've seen him in a couple things, but this is the type of performance that makes a fucking career. And also do stay for the credits, because there is a post-credit scene as well as a mid-credit scene. That's really the only type of spoiler I will provide. But there are lines in the trailer that people have seen. You know, it's like, Haley, we gonna kill every last one of you. And the theme of music is, you know, there are some people that have the gift of making music so true, so real, that it can pierce the veil between light and dark. It can conjure up spirits from the past. And this music is fucking haunting. It's hauntingly beautiful. One of the best soundtracks I have heard, besides Challengers, it's one of the best soundtracks I've heard in years. And I just love how They layer enough stuff. Whether there's certain words and slurs in this that I will not fucking say. The sword of Damocles hangs over this as far as racism. And while, yes, some people might say that this film is a little bit too busy at times, and I do agree to an extent, it feels so alive and so fresh, familiar, but so great that I didn't mind that this film had so many moving parts, allowing itself to breathe before it kicked it into gear. The third act is fucking great. This third act is exactly what needs to happen. Now, it does feel like maybe, I guess maybe if you're not that invested in it, you might feel like the last part is a little bit tacked on. But this is a film that you 1,000% need to see. You need to see it in theaters. If you can see it in IMAX or RPX or whatever premium format you have at a theater near you, please fucking do it. Sinners is exactly the type of film that I have wanted to see for many, many goddamn years. I haven't loved a horror movie like this since The Substance. That's how much I fucking love it. Now, is it as great as The Substance? It's a different type of film. But Sinners is just so good, telling the story, and the music theme is just so great. There's also a bit of the sex and stuff like that, but the sex, the violence, the melody, and silence, because it is a bittersweet symphony of life. Check this out in theaters as soon as you can. Also, Zinzi Coogler does have a brief role in this as well, relation to Ryan Coogler. Need to check it out in theaters as soon as possible. Just an absolute, just astonishingly great movie. It's beautiful to look at, yet sometimes you're like, okay, like this. It doesn't shy away from the gore. It doesn't shy away from, the nuttiness. And it uses some familiar tropes as far as vampires and stuff like that, but it uses the term vampire and hate and stuff like that, and it ties to like a lot of mythology. It's really good. Anyway, gonna get into spoilers. So 3, 2, 1, and spoilers. We open up with Samuel going into a church. It's his dad. His dad's telling him to drop the guitar. He's got his face all scratched up. We go to one day earlier. We see Smoke and Stack arrive. They have a bunch of money. And they're going about setting up this whole damn thing where the implication is they got this money while working for Al Capone, or maybe stole it from Al Capone. And they buy this plot of land, this house in particular, from a man named Hogwood that actually is a leader of a branch of the KKK. More on that in a bit. And there is a character named Remick, played by Jack O'Connell, that is a vampire who shows up later. About 40 minutes in or something like that. Actually, it's a while before you even see a goddamn vampire or an attack. So we're about a third into the movie, because it's about 2 hours and 17 minutes. We're about a third into the movie before anything really occurs. And what I love about that is it allows the story to breathe. Within the first few minutes, I knew I was in for something special. I was locked in. It was magnificent. And again, Miles as Samuel was just great. He was the cousin of Smoke and Stack. There's the stuff between, Smoke is like, one wears a red hat, one wears a blue hat. There's romances between a couple people. There's one between, one of the brothers and Annie, and then another between Haley's Mary. Haley's Mary full of grace. And Samuel also is torn by wanting to do his music, but also wanting to honor his father and stuff like that. And there aren't that many opportunities down in the South to do that stuff, especially for an African American. Now, they work on this stuff and they do some really good, story building. They set some things up very nicely. There's Lee Jun Lee's daughter and husband that help set up all this stuff. There's some great tracking shots following them from store to store. Magnificently well done. They set up all this stuff. We see the party going on and everything. Remick arrives, dropping out of I don't know where the hell he dropped from, but he nearly gets burned by the sun. He comes in and shows, some gold and everything to be let in by a couple people. Well, then he ends up basically turning the guy who turns his wife. And now we're starting to build an army and everything because the town is basically being taken over. And that's a great thing. We don't see a lot of that happen, but then we see the people pop up, but it doesn't feel like it's not earned. And the idea is they do have their familiar tropes. You can't go in if you're a vampire unless you're invited in. There's also a thing about garlic. There is a magnificent part at one point where there are some survivors eating this, trying to eat garlic and stuff like that. Delroy Lindo as Delta Slim plays a massive drunk. and starts choking on the garlic, and there's some really good interplay there. Kind of reminds me of the scene where they're snorting the stuff in the faculty. And there also is a scene with with Annie, who apparently lost a child. One of the brothers shows up. I believe it was Smoke, if I remember right. And he ends up, basically they're talking and everything, and she has some kind of herbal stuff and voodoo stuff a little bit, but they end up having a little bit of the sex. It's nice. You can tell after not seeing somebody for so goddamn long that you still have feelings for. You just wanna fuck them. At least that's my experience. So that being said, we build that. We get the implication that Stack wanted to save Mary from being hurt by him. We're getting all this stuff going. Haley looks tremendous, by the way, in those old school dresses. I mean, Jesus, those old school my God. They set up the party. There are cotton fields there. It's like, it's really, really haunting. Party gets set up. Things are going great. Samuel gets with Jamie Lawson, who actually is really, really talented. I've seen her and stuff before. But what I like about this is that it earns its stuff about building, camaraderie between characters. And, Annie's there. All these people are there. And then Remick, Jack O'Connell, and the couple show up. And they're playing music. Now, they were drawn by Samuel's music. And tremendous stuff. And then, we get some other stuff going on. They can't go in unless they're invited in. Mary goes out to talk to them, and it seems like maybe she's not necessarily turned, but she's looking at this this gold, this gold and silver and gold, and Remick has these weird eyes. All this crazy stuff's going on, and what I'm skipping over some things because this is visually so rich that it's something that you have to experience. But she ends up possessed or turned into a vampire. She's under the spell. She ends up biting Stack. So Stack is basically fucked. That leads to the scene in the trailer where he's bashing his head into the door. And it makes every bit of its $90 million budget, worth being spent. And now they got to band together. They got to, get stakes. They got to get all this stuff going on. And mind you, we are well over an hour into this movie. We're almost an hour and a half into this movie before we get the final act or the final kicking in, because we get some violence. There's a great scene that I called Irish Vampire River Dance that was magnificently done. I think Jack O'Connell might actually be Irish. I think that's why they had to put that in there. If not, he's at least from the UK and close enough. That was a great scene. That was well shot. And yeah, stake through the heart or sunlight is basically the way to kill them. And there's a part where, there's a tricking thing. Cornbread gets bit while taking a piss, and he can't come in unless they invite him in. Lee's husband, she basically, doesn't want to go out there with him, but maybe it's possible the daughter might be killed. We don't actually see the daughter, so who knows? And we build up to all this where she finally just yells, I believe her character's name was Grace, says, fine, come on in. And, well, that's all you needed to do. You shouldn't have done that. You met with a terrible fate, haven't you? So there's 8 of them and at least 200 vampires. But the idea, boom, boom, boom. And you can't just kill the one that turned everybody to turn everybody back. You got to kill them all. So Stack and Mary are vampires. We get, fire set to the goddamn thing. We get some great attacks. Pearl gets bitten. Annie basically told Smoke before, hey, by the way, if I get turned, you need to kill me. Now, the idea is they want to build this army and they want to build this whole thing. Well, Mary and Stack are trying to do this killing. Well, Smoke ends up killing Annie when Annie gets bitten and he stops her. Now, there's this voodoo pouch thing, whatever the hell it is, that ends up basically saving him being Smoke. And there's this great fight on this landing, in the top of this barn. It basically is a retrofitted barn. And they end up, Samuel ends up getting free. He goes to this lake, and Remick has him. All these people are gathering around. All these vampires are gathering around. And they're saying, the this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine, singing the church stuff. And Remick remembers it and everything, reminisces, talking about his father's land getting taken. All the stuff's going on, and then suddenly he just manages to get him enough where the sun starts coming up and the people are catching fire, and all this stuff's going on, and Remick ends up finally getting staked by Smoke, and he dies. And then Smoke basically tells Samuel, you need to run. Take the car and run. I got to take care of stuff. Because he decides to go and kill Hogwood and all the races. Because they were going to kill him. Because that was the idea. Sell them this land, kill them and take the money back and everything. Or, take the rest of the money that they have. We don't like your kind around here. There are words thrown around, the particular slur I'm not going to say. And from there, Samuel goes to the church. We see him, having to drop the guitar. The theme of the guitar is, it was this famous jazz singer. It actually was the guitar of Smoke and Stack's father. And that's something that Smoke tells him. He ends up basically seeing that Annie had a kid, the kid that died, I assume. Unless he got her pregnant, very, very quickly. And the idea is he's about to do like a gladiator moment and get the kid, and then suddenly, let's just say Hogwood calls him a very nasty word, and he ends up shooting him a whole bunch, and that was very satisfying. And then Samuel is doing what he does, and then we cut to credits, and then we go to 1992. We see that Samuel is singing jazz, doing all this stuff. And then suddenly two people walk in. It is Stack and it is Mary in 90s fashion, early 90s fashion. For some reason, Stack is like kid or play. And Haley looking as only she can look. And the idea is they're sitting down, talking. And Samuel's like, sure, these people could come in. They were willing to spend this money. So they got invited in and they're talking. Now, Samuel doesn't actually die, but the idea is maybe you could live longer. He doesn't want to do that. And that's it right there. It's also implied pretty much that Smoke does die and goes to be with his, lover and child. And then we cut to the end credits where Samuel is singing in the church. And it's really great stuff, and it's very beautifully done, and I encourage you guys to check this out. It's very, very tremendous. Sinners, one of the top 5 films of the year so far. It might be number 2 right now, just behind Warfare, and that was my flip. Who knows? Nevertheless, A+. Fucking fantastic. So, agree, disagree what I said. Like, share, subscribe. Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Rickland. I'll see you soon.